ṣé ìwọ̀nba bí òpin ìṣègùn wọn ni.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to Focus Africa series today. I want to welcome you especially to another edition of Focus Africa. On this series, we talk to successful people from around Africa, talking about what they're doing and the impact they are making in communities around them. So far, so good. We've been able to host a number of people. Number one was Charles Maslinga from Kenya. We spoke to Ernest Akinlola from the UK. And just last week, we spoke to the Honorable Minister of Youth Affairs in Sierra Leone, Honorable Omam Bagura. And today, I have a very distinguished, respectable king in the building. And we're going to go straight into the discussion. But just before that, before I introduce the king, the KBS this morning, I'd like to say a special thank you to Business Day Media for powering this section and bringing these interesting stories to all of you across Africa. And I want to thank you especially for tuning in from everywhere you are in Africa. So today, right in this discussion, like I told you last week, we have in the building the Royal Majesty, the Elerimo of Erimo Ijesha Kingdom. Kabiyesi, my king.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Michael Ajayi. Welcome, sir.
Very good afternoon to you.
So,
a very good afternoon to you.
It's a big delight. Welcome so much, Your Majesty. It's a big delight to have you on this series today to discuss politics and governance. A look into Africa's transformational journey to know how far we've done as a continent and how far we're going to do in the next few years, what we need to do, what has been our limitations, and what we can do to move to the next phase of our life as a continent. So I want to welcome you again, especially on this program, KBS.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. So today, sir, on the fifth edition of this series, powered by Business Day Media, our viewers would like to know more about your person before we delve into your numerous contributions towards national development. Please briefly tell us about yourself, upbringing, and your background.
All right, thank you very much. I am Oba Dr. Michael Odunayo Adeagbo Ajayi, Arotawaya II, the Elerimo of Erimo, Ijesha, in Oriade local government area of Osun State. It's my pleasure to be here. First of all, I would say I was well educated and passed through a couple of missionary schools in different parts of Nigeria. So I was educated partly in the north, in Kwara State. I went to the University of Ilorin, graduated in 1987 when I was 20. And from there on, I was recruited into the then largest business conglomerate in Nigeria, UAC of Nigeria PLC. And as soon as I completed my national service in Zaria, Kaduna, I resumed job with UAC. Working with UAC provided me a lot of opportunity of cross-functional experience, working in different departments and different divisions of the company, which were engaged in different sectors of the economy. I did that for about a decade. Of course, in the course of doing that, I went for an MBA, which I passed that in distinction too. And my job took me as an expatriate to Ghana, to the West Coast, to oversee the business across West Africa, from where I was recruited again as Vice President Africa for a US company that had bought into the largest pharmaceutical concern in West Africa, manufacturing and distributing generic pharmaceutical products. All these had exposed me to a number of things. Of course, I went on my own. I became a consultant for some blue chip companies. I organized business summits to bring together countries in West Africa. And along the line, the opportunity to become king came. And according to the will of God, I am now king since about 6 years ago. That is me in summary.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. So I must admit that you are a very dynamic and influential person. During our last interaction in Lagos, Nigeria, I was totally blown away by your contribution to educational issues. I mean, these are, I would say that particularly a rare case of brilliance. I know a lot of monarchs and traditional leaders are stepping up big time. They are doing very well. But yours was on another level, and we were really, really very impressed. And most people that talk about you after that interaction would always say how brilliantly you delivered on that program today. So we are convinced that your ascension to the throne was not by chance at all, sir. You deserve every bit of it. Now, tell us how the journey started. Tell us how the journey started. Is the kingship hereditary, or were you called on by your people to serve them?
Well, it was a combination of that and another combination of something which was divine. First of all, as a king, I will tell you for free that no one can become king except it is divine by God Almighty. I believe that my journey through life, through my career, was already predefined for me to ascend this throne at this time. Number two is that every kingship is hereditary, but that does not confer on me the right to become king as at when the opportunity came. In other words, while I was entitled to the kingship, there were so many other princes that could have been chosen. And I guess that the kingmakers and the entire community looked at several other factors and compelled me to accept to be king that I am today. So it's a combination of both the spiritual side, the physical side, and the fact that I was prepared divinely by God Almighty to be on the throne.
Wow. That's good to know, sir. So as a forward-thinking and progressive king in Nigeria that we know you to be, I've read on the pages of the newspapers, and I've also read on Google and many other places how you intend to transform your kingdom and make everyone wealthy. How far has this project gone, Your Majesty?
Well, that is ongoing. I was 6 years on the throne just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad to say that following the footsteps of my father, because my father was the first university graduate from this particular town, and so he had set me on that part of proper education. So I had focused, first of all, on ensuring that I looked at the educational setup and the situation in my domain. And we have done that by setting up a free vocational classes for students, because I realized that students nowadays must be computer literate. So there are free classes within 6 months period for young students to learn how to use the computer and then be best equipped to get good jobs. Number two is the fact that we have also set up vocational schools for those of them who are youths or women in order to empower them. In other words, we had arrangements to teach them different skills that they could do that would endear them to more opportunities to be able to stand up on their own. And so the vocational classes are also ongoing. Aside from this, we've done very well to improve on the infrastructures that I met on ground, which includes putting up a good and portable water supply for different parts of the community. And that is ongoing. And that's an ongoing process. Of course, we've spent a lot of time boosting support for our agricultural sector, which is a major mainstay of this community. We are a community that is known for rice production, for cocoa production, for plantain and several other known crops in Nigeria. And the next phase that we are considering is the phase where we can now move on to adding value to those agri products and then getting them ready for better use and therefore possible export, rather than just doing them and then supplying them at the local level. Of course, as king, I set up a foundation, the Obaro Tawaya Foundation, which has also been giving out scholarship to indigent but brilliant students in the community to support their parents.
Okay, sir, if you are doing this much, which we have also done some investigations and we have seen that it is true, if you are doing this much, is it safe to say that government should look into partnering with the traditional system to create more opportunities, especially at a time like this when the federal government is talking about giving local governments autonomy? Should we also give the traditional system also financial autonomy so that they can get direct access from the federal government to reach out more to the people at the grassroots. Do you think it's the right thing to do?
Honestly speaking, let's take ourselves from where our history started. There was no government when we started, let's say as Africans or as Nigerians. What we had was government of the traditional institution. That is why even in Yoruba language, when the translation of government in Yoruba is Ijoba, Ijoba is a congregation of kings, Ijoba, a congregation of kings. So this is how we see even the government. If you look at it, a president is elected, a senator is elected, a governor is elected. Over a period of time, there is a tenure limit. In other words, the governor cannot be governor forever. It's going to be governor for maybe 4 years or 8 years maximum, and then it leaves the scene. A new governor comes with another policy. The traditional institution is not like that. It's an eternal position that you occupy for a lifetime. In other words, if the government really wants to achieve the best result that will reach out to the larger part of the community, there is no way they will not want to partner with the traditional institution. I'm here in my domain. I'm the one who relates with my people day and night. I know their problems. I know what they need. I know the things that can be used to address their problem. It cannot be compared to a politician who visits the domain before election and occasionally. I'm the one who is on the ground. You understand? And you know, even politics, they say all politics is everything has to be related and controlled by the traditional institution. There is no way that this can be managed well. Look at the war against terrorism, Boko Haram and so on. Until the government started relating with the private people using the intelligence gathered from them, there was no result. Because who else would understand the terrain better than the people who are already living there and who understand it? So I am totally in support of local government autonomy. I'm in support of creating the traditional institution as a fourth tier of government. The traditional institution must be part of the constitution. This is a major thing that the government needs to think about. The traditional institution must be part of the government. Now, these days, you find people appointing committees for different parts to improve development and so on. Most of the people who are now kings in their respective domain are well learned, they are educated, and now they have an advantage of having direct relationship with their people who live with them and are close to them. So I'm totally in support of that. And I think that there must be a fourth tier of government that will be the traditional institution.
Okay, sir. This is brilliant. I have quite a number of high-profile people watching this program today from governments across Africa. We've been able to establish connections with a number of them. And I think after this discussion, they will see the reason to make some necessary adjustments to make more impact in communities, because that's very, very important. Talking about terrorism you mentioned, and also the fact that there is a rising case of moral decadence in our society. Our societal values are going down, and the vices are increasing every day. What major role do you think that the traditional system should play in addressing these issues in our society?
Okay. We are lucky to be Africans. As Africans, we already have very well established societal values that are known and are passed on from generation to generation of our people. In other words, for me, for instance, as I grew up, I knew that when I wanted to greet my father, I needed to prostrate to greet my father. It did not matter whether I had become a director of a big company or I was now so tall or taller than him. I had to greet him in that particular way. I have to show that respect to him no matter what the situation was. So this respect did not come on the basis of his particular status, maybe somebody is rich or no. It comes from the fact that we give respect to our elders. This is something that the traditional institution protects very, very, very well. And that's why it's still referred to as a traditional institution. I believe that the traditional institution has a major role to play in ensuring that our youths and people generally are still within the line of that moral, well-behaved moral lineage, as against the issue that we have right now, where we are sort of absorbing different parts of different cultures and not completely assimilating them, and then not completely understanding your own culture. So you end up becoming more like an ethnic ghetto. You are in the middle of so many things. You are neither a complete African nor a complete foreign person. And so there's that little confusion. And unfortunately, we are passing this on to our kids, and the kids are beginning to assimilate that we shouldn't be. I believe, for instance, there was a time there was a debate about why should history be part of our curricula. Of course, history has to be part of it, but the history that should be part of it is also history that has to do with the community, with the country itself. You understand? When they say Mungo Park discovered River Niger, does it mean that River Niger appeared at the time Mungo Park visited, or the River Niger was there and it was just explained publicly to the world by Mungo Park? Of course, the river was there all along. Of course, the Europeans came and they met people here. There were people here who were already living. We already had a system of government. In every palace, we have those we call Iwarefa. These are the 6 most senior kingmakers. They are like the senate of the palace. And then they sit down and take decisions with the community. I look at the judiciary. We are supposed to strengthen our customary court. If we strengthen our customary court, first of all, it will reduce the stress and the load on the High Court and the other kinds of court that we have. But then we need to give them a stamp of authority so that decisions taken there can also be used as good evidence if the case progresses beyond that particular point. Henceforth, for instance, you have a case of a land dispute in the community. Who better would know about the land dispute than those within the community, as against going to a third party who is probably going to listen to both sides and not too sure. So definitely, the traditional institution has a major role to play in ensuring that the society keeps its moral values standing.
My king, since last year, I've been doing a study on your profile. Like I said, I was totally blown away by your contribution at African Leadership and Economic Summit last year at the Eco Hotels. And a further study showed me that you have visited the New York Stock Exchange. And that was a big one for me, seeing my king at the New York Stock Exchange. Now, this shows me how you are taking the developmental project very seriously. I don't know why you went there, but for you to take New York Stock Exchange as a destination to visit means that you are up to something. Now, I want to ask you, sir, how best can developmental program and development partners engage with traditional institutions to achieve progress and sustain the programs on eradicating unemployment, poverty, achieving economic growth in general? How can we achieve that with developmental partners, with traditional institutions?
Thank you very much. First of all, regarding my visit to the New York Stock Exchange, I was invited to the US as a guest of the Black American Heritage Society. And as part of the plan, I was also invited, especially to be at the opening bell of the stock exchange. I think that if I'm not too wrong, I will be the first Nigerian monarch to be so invited to be at that particular place. And the one funny thing happened, you know, they arranged for somebody to do some interpretation for me. Believe me, that an African traditional ruler probably is not that well versed in English language. And so somebody was around and making an effort. Along the line, when they saw me communicating very well and understanding issues about the stock exchange, about commodity trading and so on, the CEO of the stock exchange, who had been looking at me from his office, came down and then asked me, he said, "My king, where did you go to university in America?" I said, "No, I didn't go to university in America." He said, "So where did you go to university in Europe?" I said, "No, I schooled in Nigeria. I didn't go to university anywhere." He said he was stunned. And so my visit that was meant to be 45 minutes extended to about 3 hours. I was there going around with them. So first of all, it's important. A statement has been made about the fact that the quality that we seek abroad exists with us even in Nigeria. Now, talking about developmental partners, it is most important that our developmental partners liaise with the traditional institution. Because for you to succeed in being able to provide what the society needs or the community will need, there is a need for needs assessment, first of all. How would you be able to achieve a result when you do a needs assessment, when you do not relate with the traditional ruler or with the traditional institution. Like I told you earlier, I'm here, I'm with my people. I know their problem day in, day out. And being a king is a 24 hours duty. There is no resumption time, there's no closing time, there is no Monday, there is no Sunday. You are at their mercy because your concern is their welfare. You cannot be sitting in the midst of poor people and then not be concerned. So that relationship will allow us to have that opportunity for a needs assessment. I give you an instance of a group that has been assisting us. They call them and Gifts Foundation. They came here, they had a meeting, we called all the women together. The women told them the kind of things they needed. They had planned to do something else, but because of that interaction they had with us, they got to know that certain things needed to be done better in this way. One of my experiences there showed we spent a lot of money trying to support men. And we realized that the more money that men made, they were marrying more wives, they were getting into more domestic violence, and so on, coming home late. The moment we switched more support to the women, we realized that the women were taking care of their children, they were looking after their children going to school, they were providing for the family and so on. So you see that there's a huge difference in the opportunity to relate with the community. And once that needs assessment is properly done and we have a good result as to what does this particular community need, because our needs vary, then it is easy to also ensure to build trust and also ensure that the implementation is done and delivered as expected. Because most of the problems that our partners have had is that they relate to politicians. After a while, the politicians have gone, and so they need to start another relationship with another politician. But if you are relating with the traditional institution, it's more like a permanent institution forever. So you can always be back. And of course, the traditional ruler is interested in the welfare of his people. So definitely that relationship needs to improve and change for the better.
This is a master class. This is a master class, I must say. We're having a lot of reactions from YouTube, from WhatsApp, and from Facebook. So I'm going to be taking a few of them, Your Majesty. And I'm not seeing questions. People are really impressed with what you are doing. It's just 2 questions I've gotten so far from Nigeria here. But before I go right into the questions, I need to ask you another question as a follow-up to the answer you just gave us. So in our journey to becoming a first world continent, I don't know when that will be achievable. Right now, we're a third world country. That's what they say. So, yeah, continent. So in our view to becoming a first world continent, what do you think governments in Africa and indeed all leaders and stakeholders should do to put the continent on the path of sustained growth and development, looking beyond just Nigeria now?
Please, you have to repeat the question. I was offline when you were asking the question. Hello, please go over. Yes.
All right, sir. I said yes, sir. In our journey to becoming a first world continent, what do you think the government in Africa and indeed all leaders and stakeholders should do to put the continent on the path of sustained growth and development? I'm asking you this question as somebody, in fact, you are rated as one of the most influential Nigerians to live in Ghana. So that will put you in a position to give advice to African leaders on what we should do to have a sustained growth in the continent.
It's very simple and very difficult. The first problem in Africa is that the African countries are not doing business much with each other. Africans are not, the level of intra-continental trade is ridiculously low, if you get my point. So that is the first thing that needs to be improved. The situation where we feel that every relationship has to be with those outside the continent is an error. There is a need for us to even improve our relationship within ourselves. In Yoruba parlance, we say, in other words, you have to start whatever is homegrown. You understand what I'm saying? Number one. Number two is the fact that we need to improve on the level of trust. We have found a situation whereby we go about getting loans, getting this and getting that, and then most of this money gets mismanaged. The level of corruption in Africa is embarrassingly high. That has to stop. That has to stop. Number three, I was in Ghana when Obama visited Ghana, President Obama then. And there was a point he made when he addressed the parliament. He said, Africa does not need strong leaders. Africa needs strong institutions. That is what Africa needs. If you have strong institutions, you improve trade within each other, and then you deal with corruption in Africa, the problem will definitely be reduced significantly. That's something that needs to look at. You look at a situation like the ECOWAS region, sub-region. We are supposed to be doing business with each other. I remember that there is an ECOWAS treaty that says they call the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. That scheme allows for free movement of goods and persons and duty-free export to other African countries. And I remember that this is supposed to be followed to the letter. The question is that how well have we done that? Are we able to export goods within each other and has it been duty-free? No. You find a situation whereby people import some products, partially package, and then do a bit of packaging and then export it as manufactured goods. Are we being honest with each other? No. The idea is to encourage trade. Nigeria, for instance, is a market of about 200 million. A lot of African countries will want to get products into it. If the products meet the standard of the ECOWAS ETLS scheme, why not? But I believe that we have not been honest generally as Africans with some of the requirements of this scheme. And so many other issues to look at. Are we trading very well? Nigeria has its own advantage. South Africa has its own advantage. What is the connection and relationship between us? We need to improve on that. So I think these are the things that African countries need to look at. One, improve trade within each other. Two, deal with the corruption that is endemic. And three, begin to build institutions. Institutions should be able to stand on their own, not requiring individuals. You don't need to know anybody. You should be able to get what you need done without having to relate with people on a personal level.
You see, Kabias, this gives me a cause to worry. I was privileged to host Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement for Business Day and their partners in Ikoyi sometime last year. And around January, I was also included into the South African board for AFTA. And, each time I look at the brilliant ideas behind AFTA agreement for free continental trade and what you just described now, looking at the ECOWAS project that was not followed to the letter, it gives me a concern. Now, in a season where most countries like Nigeria are closing their borders, they don't want influx of goods from other countries, want to encourage homegrown things and all that. Do you think that this AFTA agreement will be followed to the letter? Since those are the kind of things we need to facilitate trade and build our continent to where it's supposed to be, what do you think has been a major problem towards following to the letter this agreement we have?
I think the major problem generally around the world is this attempt at protecting your economy. But when you overprotect your economy, it becomes a detriment to your own economy itself. You understand what I'm saying? When you overprotect an economy, it becomes a detriment to you. Most of the time, free trade allows everybody to take advantage of its own area of strength. Everybody looks at their own area of strength and then take advantage of it. Nigeria should have a lot of strength with 200 million people. Cost of manufacturing should be okay. If the power situation, which I believe is getting better these days, is addressed quickly. Once that is addressed, so I don't have anything against supporting the free trade. I think that's the best thing to do. But there's always that chance of strong countries taking advantage of the others and then making sure that this doesn't work. I am totally in support of the fact that the free trade should be encouraged, because that allows everybody to focus on their own areas of advantage, and you can't do everything yourself. You can't be everything to everybody or do everything for everybody. No, everybody has his own area of strength. This is my own domain, for instance. We are strong in agriculture. We may not be strong in every other thing, but we are strong. We have very arable land. We are able to plant, to grow rice. We are able to grow cocoa and so many other things. That's an area of strength for us. And so this is the areas that we look at for our investors to support us. So this is my own view.
Okay, sir, that's amazing. So I hope the people who have to make these decisions and follow these things later are taking their notes today. Okay, so let me take a question from YouTube, sir, before we move forward. We have a question from Quest Edge Branding and PR Agency. They are asking, what advice will you give to our government in the area of development and also carrying traditional leaders like you along?
Well, if the government wants the truth, there's no reason why the traditional institution should not be included. There was a conference, I think it was in 2014 or so, where I think it was like a national conference or so, and this was already included in what was discussed as a major issue. If you want to solve the problem, look at a country like Nigeria. I believe over 50% of the population of Nigeria are living in the rural areas, maybe 60, maybe 70. If that is the case, it means that the focus of whatever you are doing is actually more in the rural areas. And who do you deal with when you are dealing with the rural area? It's the traditional institution. If you really, really want your effort to achieve results. We were taught something in marketing then. You could be in a dark room and then be shooting and hoping that you will hit the target. At the same time, you could lit up the room and look at your target well and then aim for your target. That reduces your stress. So I am of the view, and that's why I said earlier, the traditional institution must be accepted as a fourth tier of government. Remember, before colonization, the judiciary was under the traditional institution. The legislature was under the traditional institution. So was the king, like the executive. Everything was under the traditional institution. Why then would we now totally discard the traditional institution as if it has no value? And then we leave them. And then the moment there is a crisis, maybe security issues and so on, the government runs to the traditional institution seeking for help that ordinarily should have been part of the original effort in the first place.
Wow. Something needs to be done about this, obviously. All right, so before I take more reactions from from YouTube, WhatsApp, and other channels, I'm going to be reading out what people are saying on this discussion today. I'd like to ask you a second to the last question I have here today. After all these discussions, do you think that young people are ripe enough for political leadership in Africa? How can they be encouraged?
No, they are ripe. I mean, for me, they are ripe enough. Not ripe enough with the noise that we normally hear. It's not about not too young to run. No, yes, young people are ripe enough. Why are they ripe enough? If you have gone through proper mentorship, definitely you are ripe enough. Number two is that people are always should be given the opportunity to even try and make some effort. There is no age. Age is not a factor in the ability to achieve desired results. The problem with us is that, like in Yoruba land, there is a saying, there's an adage that the history that will not die must be history that has been told to the little ones, to the kids. In other words, if you keep information to yourself and you don't pass on that information to younger kids, it will die naturally without you even realizing it. So there's no reason to exclude young people in governance. Look at the case of Nigeria. The Queen of England became queen, I think, in her mid-20s. The Awujale of Ijebuland became king under 30. The Alaafin of Oyo was just a little bit above 30 when he became king. Look at when Nigeria was being governed. General Gowon was a bachelor, a young bachelor at the time he was at the end of affair of the country. And this was the time that the oil boom started, when most of those bridges were built. He was there. How old was Awolowo when he started? How old was Matthew Mbu? How old were all those people? They were all young. What we need to do is to encourage our youth to believe in Nigeria. That's something that an average American does. An average American, no matter how bad situation it believes in their country, we need to improve the level of patriotism in our youth and in our people. I know that it's possible to say that the older ones have disappointed the youth. And we can say that there's a saying also in Yoruba, they say Akuko Gagara doesn't want, like a big cock doesn't want the other one to crow. Yes, but this has to stop. The leaders have to encourage the youth. They have to appoint them into position. That's why I was happy with somebody like Governor Makinde when he appointed a young boy as a commissioner, and then other states began to follow. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity that has to be given. It doesn't mean that they will not fail. It doesn't mean that they will not make mistakes, but you make mistakes and learn and then improve on that. But a situation whereby all the people at the end, even some parties, they have youth leaders. Youth leaders are 70-something years old. That's ridiculous. How can that be? So I definitely believe that we need to encourage our younger ones. That's something I've done in my palace. When we have a fortnight congregation of the town where I sit on cases and discuss with the town, the community, and so on. In the past, little kids were not allowed in, but I compelled everybody to ensure that they create a session for young kids to sit down when they are out of school, to be part of it, to listen to the discussion that is going on, and then to learn from it. Because as we say in Yoruba, in other words, the little kid is wise, the elder one is wise. That's how the world was created.
Exactly. I've been opportunity to see a lot of young people coming up into the leadership scene in Africa, and I must say that they need that chance to become better. Like you cited the example of former leaders coming into a position of authority at a young age. These are the right things to do to give people opportunity. I met Honorable Shehu Fakorede a week ago in Ecuador, the Honorable Commissioner for Youth. And I will tell you that looking at him, having an interaction with him, you will know that he has a vision. And if given a free hand by His Excellency, he will do more. Last week, I also hosted a very young Honorable Minister from Sierra Leone. And I know quite a number of other people from across Africa who are doing well as young people and should be given opportunity. Thank you so much, sir, for having our back as regarding these issues, sir. So let me read out some reactions from YouTube. I have Iretiola Adegoroye on YouTube saying, "It's a good job you are doing. Good to have you on board, our terrible king from Erimo Kingdom." And we have Real Man Alex, the king is well learned. And we have Bakare, good afternoon, Kabiesi, good work you're doing. We have Benga, Kabiesi, you are welcome on board. God is your strength. And I can continue to read this. There are many. It's just to show you that people are watching from across and they are very, very impressed with what you're doing. And whatever you're doing, sir, keep doing it. It's a very good work. So we're so happy today that you came on this show. And I personally have learned quite a lot as usual from you today. And I'm also sure that many people have learned a lot from you. Our time on this series is coming to an end. And just before we hand over to Business Day for the next program we have on the series today, I'd like to ask you one last question, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
If the president of African Union is having a meeting with you today, what would you advise him to do to be able to harmonize all African leaders to move our continent from where it is today to where it needs to be?
Thank you. The first thing that Africa needs to do is to solve this problem of several conflicts, several forms of terrorism and insecurity in the continent. No, in an atmosphere of insecurity, there cannot be proper and serious development. Nobody wants to invest or stay or put his money where it's not certain about what will happen tomorrow. The nature and level of conflict in Africa is ridiculously high and needs to be addressed. We cannot keep fighting internal strifes, external aggression, and so on. So that's the first thing he needs to do. They need to find a way to address this issue. A situation whereby Africa is sitting down and waiting for the United Nations Peace Corps. Why can't they have a working and efficient peace maintenance corps within Africa? Because anyway, in those days, when there was the World War, they took soldiers from Africa to fight those wars. And our grandfathers remember and have told us the story. Number two is, like I said, as the AU head, he needs to encourage trade, free trade among member countries, among African countries. It's a large continent. Africa is the most well-equipped continent when it comes to natural resources. Everything you can think of is available. It's embarrassing that you can find uranium that is used to make atomic bombs in Africa, yet those countries with uranium are some of the poorest in the whole world. It's ridiculous. You have diamond, you have copper, you have gold, or practically everything you can imagine is in Africa. So we need to begin to harness and tap into these resources. Number three is the fact that we have to stop encouraging strong leaders. Rather, we should be encouraging strong institutions. We have to build the African institution to be strong enough to be able to withstand and be able to do what needs to be done. Which is why, one way aside from having in Africa, we are broken into several sectors. There's the Anglophone, there's the Francophone, there are the Arabs and so on. But the fact is that we all belong to the same continent, and we should see ourselves as one. So if we are going to trade with the world, we should trade with the world as an African continent. Because if Togo goes to trade with another country outside Africa, with a population of 5 million, they will always be at a disadvantage. So with so many other countries. But if we mass up the population of the entire African continent with all the resources available, it gives us an edge to negotiate better. Corruption to us.
Okay, my king. All right, my king, I'd like to ask you this question. It is really very important before we go. I'm so sorry I'm taking all your time today. This question is from Princess Iritiola. She's asking, how do we address disunity among the traditional institutions in Nigeria, particularly? In such a way that you will all have the same voice to speak and address societal issues. Why this question is important for me is religious leaders. That's why you see a few religious leaders speaking up when things are going wrong and others are not speaking up. Traditional rulers the same. We have quite a few of you speaking, but the rest are not talking. But when there is meeting in presidential villa, you see everyone represented. And she's asking, how can we address this disunity?
Well, I think that the way to look at this is that there's a problem of ego among traditional rulers. The position itself is egoistic, so it encourages you to be like a lord. And so everybody wants to feel that they are bigger than the other. My domain is bigger, my position is bigger, my crown is bigger. But in the reality, all this is a fallacy. Why do I say so? I am Kabiesi Elerimo Ferimojisha. My authority is within my domain. No matter how big I become, I cannot be Kabiesi of your town, success. I cannot be. You have your own traditional ruler whose responsibility is in his domain. So I think it's important that for our traditional rulers to understand that everybody is king in his domain. That is already clearly marked out. And so the focus, rather than focusing on ego-induced fights, is to focus on the welfare and development of your people. I tell people my first responsibility right now is to look after my people anymore. Second responsibility is to encourage good nature and development in Nigeria. Then I can now begin to think of Africa. So I have to look at my primary responsibility first of all. So I think that the advice, because we can only advise, is that all traditional rulers should understand that whatever they do, posterity will judge us. It is easy for a politician to do something and the whole world forget. But whatever a traditional ruler does will never be forgotten in his domain. And the people will remember. Let's not do what will affect our children in future, our children's children. If my father did not do well, I will not be on this throne. I will not be. If my great-grandfather was on the throne, did not do well, I will not be on this throne. The traditional institution does not forget. Anything you do will be remembered. So I will encourage them to let us focus more on leaving useful legacies for our people rather than engaging in any form of disunity, which is very rampant. It's very correct.
So on behalf of the African Leadership and Economic Summit, Business Day and Focus Africa Service, we want to thank you especially for all you represent and how you are positively impacting our lives. And we're looking forward to hosting you at the Africa Economic Connection Conference coming up in October, because we want you to make a this impact to every other person coming for that conference. Thank you so much for your time today on this series. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, Success. First of all, let me thank you for the wonderful job you are doing. People of your age have the opportunity to do all sorts, but you've chosen a very, very difficult path. You want to improve relationship, you want to improve development for the youth, leadership, and so on. Honestly, I'm always impressed. That's why whenever you call me, I'm ready to leave everything I'm doing to give the little support I can give. So I want to congratulate you. Secondly, I'd like to congratulate Business Day. Since they started publishing, they've been #1 when it comes to business. And I've had personal relationship with them and business relationship because they have supported the summit that I organized, the Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Nigeria Business Summit for many years in Ghana. I believe in what they do, and I'm happy that up to now, they are still carrying on the objectives that they started with. And I hope that all these efforts that you are doing will one day begin to yield results. And I believe that people are watching. Some people are watching, and you are beginning to have more disciples day by day. God bless you, and God be with you. So thank you for the opportunity and the platform. I'm happy to be, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kabiesi.
Thank you, Success.
And to all of you, I want to thank you. To all our viewers, I want to thank you especially for tuning in as usual on Focus Africa Services. I want to say a special thank you again to Business Day Media for bringing this our way. Until next week, okay, we'll not be having this series on next week because we're having a very important conference on Business Day. But in the next 2 weeks, we'll be live here again with another important guest. Until then, thank you. My name is Success Bright, your host.